Today we are going to cover the history of France, the grand comedy of glory. Welcome to France, a country that has spent 2000 years trying to decide if it wants to be a Roman province, a Catholic kingdom, a revolutionary bloodbath, or a 35-hour-a-week vacation destination. It is a place where people are so passionate about liberty that they invented the most efficient machine in history to take it away. It's a nation built on grandeur, a word that sounds very expensive and usually ends with a riot. Today, we are covering the history of France from the first Gaul to the last croissant in under 10 minutes. First is the Gallic identity crisis. In the beginning, there were the Gauls. They were brave, fierce, and had excellent mustaches. Then came Julius Caesar. The Romans didn't just conquer Gaul, they gave them wine, roads, and baths. The Gauls fought bravely, lost heroically, and then immediately started speaking Latin and acting like they'd been Roman since the Stone Age. By the time the Roman Empire fell, a group called the Franks moved in. Their leader, Clovis, decided that if you can't beat the Romans, you should adopt their religion. He became Catholic, and suddenly, France wasn't just a piece of land. It was the eldest daughter of the church. It's a title that sounds very holy until you realize how much daughters and parents usually argue. That brings us to the Middle Ages, one big family feud. Enter Charlemagne. He was the father of Europe because he conquered almost everything. He was crowned emperor in the year 800, mostly because the Pope needed a bodyguard. Charlemagne's empire was massive, but like a bad inheritance, his grandsons split it into 3 pieces. One piece became France. Then came the 100 Years' War. It wasn't actually 100 years, it was 116. It was basically a long, violent real estate dispute with England. Just when the French were about to lose their keys to the house, a teenager named Joan of Arc showed up. She claimed God told her to kick the English out. She succeeded, and in return, she was burned at the stake. In history, no good deed goes unpunished, and no punishment goes uncelebrated later. That brings us to the Sun King and the Bill. By the 1600s, France decided that one king should have all the power. Louis XIV, the Sun King, was the ultimate influencer. He built Versailles, a palace so gold and shiny that you could probably see it from space if telescopes had existed. His logic was simple. L'État, c'est moi. Meaning, I am the state. He made the nobles live with him so he could watch them, turning the fierce warriors of the Middle Ages into people who competed to see who could hold the king's shirt in the morning. It was the world's most expensive reality TV show. The only problem? The bill. And the people paying it were the ones who weren't invited to the party. That brings us to the Revolution. By 1789, the French people were hungry. They asked for bread, and according to legend, they were told to eat cake. This was a bad PR move. The French Revolution began with the storming of the Bastille. It was supposed to be about liberty, equality, and fraternity. It ended up being about the guillotine. The French decided that the best way to ensure equality was to make everyone exactly one head shorter. They killed the king, they killed the queen, and then they started killing the people who suggested they stop killing people. It was a masterpiece of irony, a movement for human rights that forgot the right to keep your neck. When a country is in total chaos, they usually look for a strong man. Enter Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a brilliant general who conquered Europe because he was bored with French politics. He crowned himself emperor, which is a very funny thing to do right after a revolution against kings. Napoleon was like a firework, bright, explosive, and eventually he landed in the mud. After losing in the Russian winter, a classic mistake we've discussed before, he was exiled. He came back for 100 days, lost at Waterloo, and was exiled again to a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic. He proved that you can change the map of the world, but you can't change the fact that the British really like tea and island-based punishments. The 19th century in France was like a revolving door. They had a restoration of kings, then a revolution, then another republic, then another emperor, Napoleon's nephew, then another republic. Then came the 20th century. World War I was a tragedy of trenches, and World War II was a tragedy of the Maginot Line, a giant wall that was perfect for stopping an army, as long as that army didn't know how to drive around it. The French resistance and Charles de Gaulle eventually helped save the day. De Gaulle was a man who believed he was France. He once asked, "How can you govern a country which has 246 varieties of cheese?" He was right. Unity is hard when everyone has a different opinion on camembert. Modern France, the art of the protest. Today, France is the Fifth Republic. It's a modern, high-tech nation that still keeps its 18th century spirit. In other countries, a protest is a sign of a crisis. In France, a protest is a sign of a Tuesday. They have the best trains, the best bread, and a 35-hour work week that they will defend with their lives. It is a country that understands that the purpose of life is not just to work, but to live beautifully, eat well, and occasionally tell the government that they are doing a terrible job. France's history teaches us that grandeur is fleeting, but a good strike is eternal. It's a nation that has survived its own ambition, and that is perhaps its greatest victory.